talk in the voice of a warrior, and then I talk in the voice of a statesperson. And the voice of a warrior is generally 20 to 40 years old, give or take. Some people get it early, some people never get it. But during those years, if you're 20 to 40 years old, we're operating on human training.
Right.
Selfish, self-centered, arrogant, finger-pointing, judging, blaming, fake it till you make it, sarcasm, self-pity, victim. We chase a lot of rabbits, and I did, that I never caught. Busy, 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 work, 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 work. Because we don't have wisdom, a lot of wisdom during those ages. And wisdom and intelligence, two different things. You can be a PhD in a wino on a Bowery sewer. What happens, most people usually find statesperson later in life. Don't have to, though. Find it later in life, and it usually is a result of a life crushing. Either life crushes, someone crushes, relationship, or we crush ourselves in self-sabotage. We burn ourselves out. And it's at that point where I started to look for different answers. And the answers that I found, I never saw in a seminar. I mean, I've written 30 books. I've been to every motivational seminar. Probably every speaker in the universe has worked for my companies at one time or another in this field, but I never saw this information. Game changer, Larry. This is where we start to learn the power of humility, the power of tolerance and patience and kindness and letting go of resentment. We start to understand the power of realizing that we're powerless over not only people, places, and things, but most situations, including business. And when we try to control or manipulate, our life becomes unmanageable. I was one of the greatest closers. I don't mean this to brag. I don't have to do that anymore. You know, there's another plan. So in this book, talking the voice of warrior, statesperson, the first question most people ask is, well, I don't want to be the statesperson. I'm still warrior. Well, we don't have to be one or the other. See, I can still be selfish, self-centered, arrogant. I can still be a finger pointer, a closer, but I just don't have to anymore. And what I've learned is we're not supposed to struggle for anything. My life today falls into place. I mean, you've watched it over the last 2 days.
Well,
explain your experiences.
Well, what's interesting is we were riding the bike yesterday, and you're sitting there waving to everyone, and you're all happy-go-lucky. And I asked you, I said, well, how were you, during this amazing ride that you had as you were building this juggernaut of a company? And you said, well, a lot of times you may have been going through the actions, but inside you weren't feeling happy. You weren't feeling satisfied. Right. And can you talk about that whatever the shift you've made, because now it just seems you're happy, you're stress-free, and all the different things that we talked about yesterday.
And the business has fallen into place and going to. I'm almost afraid, of this inner voice, because I know this information has been so powerful to so many people, and we've not even opened it up to the public yet. But to answer your question, Larry, I was always in fear and doubt. Was I a good enough businessman? Was I going to be a good enough dad? Would I meet my goals? And most of us, you'll find here, the whole key to this book and the exercises in it and the things that we take people through. So it's not spiritual rhetoric. It's not rhetoric at all. It's an action program. There's a principle and a strategy. So what did I learn differently during this 20 countries and 20,000 hours that changed my behavior and got me a better result? And if I didn't have evidence that it worked, it didn't make the book.
Yeah.
And you know me, I'm not a hocus pocus guy. I wouldn't be here talking about it. And you see my lifestyle, you see that I live it. So here's what I think a lot of people are going through, especially if you're in your warrior years. Is my business growing? Nobody in business right now thinks you're doing as good as you can do. And I live that. So there's anxiety, frustration, fear, doubt, carrying the guilt, shame of yesterday. I coulda, I shoulda, why didn't I? So the start of the book starts with, what's the game of life about? Have you ever stopped to think, what am I doing here? What is my purpose? And generally, we find our purpose through our childhood wounds and experiences. And we learn that through the discovery chart in this book. It's what changed my whole thing. I realized I was an abused child, and so I grew up with this never good enough syndrome because I couldn't walk the dog good enough, couldn't do schoolwork good enough. And that's what made me question, even though I didn't know it at the time, am I going to be a good enough dad? Am I going to be a good enough businessman? It caused me to work harder and chase more and waste a lot of time. I can take a lot of wasted time out of anybody's life who's in the entrepreneurial mode, the business mode, who's not necessarily happy with what they're doing, in too much anxiety, frustration, fear, and doubt. The game of life is a search for the truth.